The crowd's roar faded to a distant hum as Muhammad Ali stepped into the narrow corridor leading away from the exhibition match in Chicago. Sweat still glistened on his brow, his breathing finally steadying after 12 rounds of controlled fury. The year was 1975, and though no longer the official heavyweight champion since his title was stripped for refusing the draft, he remained the people's champion. Mr. Ali. A man's voice cut through the backstage noise, urgent and strained. Ali turned, towel draped around his neck, to see a thin man with hollow cheeks and tired eyes pushing through 2 security guards. The man clutched the hand of a small girl, no more than 7 years old, with braided hair and eyes that seemed too serious for her age. "Let him through," Ali said with a wave of his hand. The security guards hesitated but stepped aside. The man approached, his shoulders hunched as if carrying an invisible weight. "Mr. Ali, my name is Marcus Wilson. This is my daughter, Sophia." The little girl half hid behind her father's leg but kept her eyes fixed on Ali. "Nice to meet you both," Ali replied, crouching down to the girl's level. "What's got your daddy in such a hurry to see me?" Marcus cleared his throat. "Everyone talks about your faith, how it changed you, how it guides you. But words are easy, Mr. Ali. I need to see if it's real." The handful of people in the corridor, trainers, managers, venue staff, fell silent. Ali's expression remained neutral, but his eyes sharpened with interest. "My wife died 6 months ago," Marcus continued, his voice cracking slightly. "Cancer. Left me with Sophia and more questions than answers. People tell me to have faith, but what does that even look like when everything's falling apart?" Ali straightened, studying the man's face. "What exactly are you asking me to do, brother?" "Prove it," Marcus said simply, desperation edging into his voice. "Not with words or quotes or public displays. Show me what faith actually does when the cameras aren't rolling and the crowds aren't watching." Before Ali could respond, his manager Angelo Dundee appeared at his side. "Champ, we need to go. Press conference in 5 minutes." Ali held up a hand without taking his eyes off Marcus and Sophia. "Tell them I'll be there when I get there." "But the network, they can wait," Ali said firmly. He turned to Marcus. "You got somewhere we can talk?" "Not here." Marcus blinked, clearly not expecting this response. We live about 20 minutes from here. It's nothing special." "Perfect," Ali said. "I'll meet you there in 2 hours. Give your address to my assistant." He gestured to a young man with a clipboard who hurried over. As Marcus scribbled his address, Ali knelt again to look Sophia in the eyes. "What's your favorite food, little sister?" The girl hesitated before whispering, "Chocolate cake." Ali grinned. "Then I'll bring the best chocolate cake in Chicago. That's a promise." As Marcus and Sophia were escorted out, Angelo approached Ali with concern etched on his face. "What are you doing, champ? You don't know these people." Ali watched the father and daughter disappear around the corner. "That man's not looking for an autograph or a photo, Angelo. He's looking for something real. And maybe I need to remember what that looks like too." Later that evening, as the sun began its descent over the Chicago skyline, a sleek black Cadillac pulled up outside a modest apartment building in the South Side. The neighborhood showed signs of neglect: cracked sidewalks, graffiti-marked walls, and chain-link fences surrounding patches of yellowed grass. Children playing on the street froze in disbelief as Muhammad Ali, dressed simply in slacks and a button-down shirt, stepped out of the car carrying a white bakery box. Within minutes, word spread through the neighborhood. By the time Ali reached the 3rd floor, following the address he'd been given, a small crowd had gathered in the stairwell behind him. Murmuring in excitement, he knocked on apartment 315. The door opened to reveal Marcus, looking even more tired than before, surprise flickering across his face as if he hadn't actually expected Ali to show up. "You came," Marcus said simply. "I said I would," Ali replied. "I brought something for Sophia." He lifted the cake box slightly. Marcus stepped aside to let him in, then turned to the growing crowd in the hallway. "Please give us some privacy." He closed the door firmly. The apartment was small but clean, with mismatched furniture and walls decorated with children's drawings. Photos of a smiling woman, presumably Marcus's late wife, were displayed prominently on a side table. Sophia sat cross-legged on a worn couch, her eyes widening as Ali entered. "As promised," Ali said, setting the cake box on the coffee table and opening it to reveal an elaborate chocolate cake. "The best in Chicago, according to my driver." Sophia's face lit up momentarily before she looked to her father for permission. "We can have some after dinner," Marcus said softly. "Thank you, Mr. Ali." "Just Ali is fine," he replied, taking a seat in an armchair that seemed too small for his frame. "Now you wanted to talk about faith." Marcus nodded, sitting beside his daughter. "I did, but now that you're actually here, it seems, I don't know, presumptuous." "Nothing presumptuous about honest questions," Ali said, "especially when they come from a place of pain." Sophia suddenly spoke up, her voice small but clear. "Dad cries at night when he thinks I'm sleeping." Marcus flinched, avoiding Ali's gaze. "That's what grief does, little sister," Ali said gently. "It comes in waves when we least expect it." "She was supposed to get better," Sophia continued, picking at a loose thread on her sleeve. "The doctors said she would. Dad prayed every night. I heard him." The air in the room grew heavy with unspoken accusations. Marcus finally looked up, his eyes red-rimmed. "That's why we're here. I prayed, I begged, I bargained. And she still died. So what good is faith if it doesn't save the people we love?" Ali was silent for a long moment, considering his words carefully. "Faith isn't a magic trick," he finally said. "It's not about getting what we want." "Then what is it for?" Marcus demanded, his voice rising slightly before he caught himself, glancing at his daughter. Ali leaned forward. "Let me ask you something first. When you found out your wife was sick, what did the doctors tell you to do?" Marcus frowned, confused by the shift. "They gave us a treatment plan. Medications, chemotherapy, dietary changes. And did you follow it?" "Of course, to the letter." "Even when it made her sicker? When she lost her hair, when she couldn't eat?" Marcus's jaw tightened. "Yes, because they said it was her best chance." Ali nodded slowly. "You had faith in those doctors. Even when the treatment seemed worse than the disease, you trusted their knowledge and experience." "That's different," Marcus objected. "That's science, not—" "Is it so different?" Ali interrupted gently. "You couldn't see inside her body. You couldn't see the cancer cells dying alongside the healthy ones. You took it on faith that the poison they were putting in her veins was actually helping, not hurting." The room fell silent as Marcus absorbed this. Sophia looked between the two men, her young mind working to follow the conversation. "Faith in God isn't about getting the outcome we want," Ali continued. "It's about trusting that there's a bigger picture we can't see yet. Just like you trusted those doctors even when things looked worse, not better." Marcus's shoulders slumped. "But doctors make mistakes. They're just people. And people misunderstand God," Ali countered. "We think faith is about getting what we pray for. But real faith is finding peace even when we don't." Outside, the light was fading, casting long shadows across the small living room. In the kitchen, a clock ticked steadily, marking the passage of time that seemed to stand still within the apartment's walls. "I don't know if I can find that kind of peace," Marcus admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. Ali's expression softened. "You don't find it all at once, brother. It comes in moments, like—" He glanced around the room, then pointed to a photograph of Marcus, his wife, and Sophia, at what appeared to be a beach. "Tell me about that day." Marcus followed his gaze, and for the first time a ghost of a smile touched his lips. "That was last summer, before we knew she was sick. We drove to Lake Michigan. Sophia built her first sandcastle. It was huge," Sophia chimed in, her face brightening at the memory. "And Mom found all these pretty shells to decorate it. Sounds like a perfect day," Ali observed. "It was," Marcus agreed, the smile growing more substantial. "That's where faith lives," Ali said quietly. "In the perfect days that stay with you. In the love that doesn't end when someone dies. In the strength you find when you think you can't go on, but somehow you do." Marcus studied Ali's face. "Is that enough? Moments of peace in an ocean of pain?" "For now it has to be," Ali replied honestly. "The ocean never goes away completely, but the moments get longer. The pain gets, not smaller but more familiar, more like an old scar than an open wound." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, worn book. "This is my personal Quran. I've had it for 15 years now. Read it every day." He held it out to Marcus. Marcus hesitated. "I can't take that. I'm not giving it to you," Ali clarified with a small smile. "I'm showing you something." He opened the book to reveal handwritten notes in the margins, dates, underlined passages. "Every time I find a moment of peace, I mark it here. Every time I face a challenge and find my way through, I write it down. Not because God needs to see it, but because I need to remember it." He turned to a specific page and pointed to a note. This was when they stripped me of my title. I thought my life was over. My career, everything I'd worked for. But looking back, that moment of great pain led to something greater than I could have imagined. It forced me to decide what I really believed, what really mattered. Marcus took the book carefully, examining the personal notations. And that helped? Writing it down? It reminds me that I've weathered storms before, Ali said, and that sometimes what looks like the end is just a painful beginning. Sophia, who had been listening intently, suddenly asked, "Do you think my mom is in heaven?" The directness of the child's question hung in the air. Marcus looked stricken, clearly unsure how to respond. Ali regarded the little girl thoughtfully. "What do you think?" Sophia considered this seriously. "I think she is. She was the best person I knew." "Then that's what matters," Ali said. "What you carry in your heart about her. That's where she lives now." He turned back to Marcus. "That's the other half of faith. Not just believing in what you can't see, but holding on to what you once saw clearly. The love you shared was real. Nothing, not death, not grief, not unanswered prayers, can take that away." For the first time since Ali had met him, Marcus's eyes filled with tears that weren't born purely of pain. Something else mingled there. Not happiness exactly, but perhaps the first fragile seedling of acceptance. "I don't know how to move forward," Marcus admitted. "Every day feels like walking through quicksand." "You don't have to know the whole path," Ali said. "Just the next step. And sometimes, that step is as simple as cutting a chocolate cake and watching your daughter smile." As if on cue, Sophia's stomach growled audibly, bringing a genuine laugh from both men. The sound seemed to lighten the apartment, pushing back the shadows. "I think that's our cue," Marcus said, rising to his feet. "I'll get some plates." As Marcus disappeared into the kitchen, Ali moved to sit beside Sophia on the couch. "Your dad is very brave," he told her quietly. "He doesn't think so," she replied with the startling insight children sometimes possess. "He thinks he's failing because he's sad all the time." Ali nodded solemnly. "Being brave doesn't mean you're not sad or scared. It means you keep going anyway, like your dad is doing for you." Sophia considered this, then asked, "Did you ever lose someone you loved?" "Yes," Ali answered simply. "Many times. Does it ever stop hurting?" Ali chose his words carefully. "The hurt changes shape. It becomes part of who you are, but not all of who you are. Like a river that carves a canyon. The water shaped the rock, but the canyon becomes beautiful in its own way." Marcus returned with 3 plates and forks. "Philosophical discussions with a 7-year-old?" he asked, setting the plates down. "The most honest kind," Ali replied with a wink at Sophia. As they ate the chocolate cake, the conversation shifted to lighter topics. Sophia's school, Ali's training regimen, funny stories about life in Chicago. For a brief window of time, the apartment felt less like a place of mourning, and more like a home where healing might someday be possible. When the cake was half eaten and the sky outside fully dark, Ali glanced at his watch. "I should be going. My trainer will have my head if I'm not up at 5 tomorrow morning." A flicker of disappointment crossed Marcus's face, but he nodded in understanding. "Thank you for coming. It was unexpected. In a good way, I hope," Ali said, rising to his feet. "In the best way," Marcus confirmed, extending his hand. Instead of shaking it, Ali pulled him into a brief, firm embrace. "Faith isn't about having all the answers," he said quietly. "It's about finding peace in the questions." When they separated, Sophia launched herself at Ali's legs in a tight hug. "Will you come back sometime?" she asked, looking up at him with hopeful eyes. Ali gently patted her braided hair. "I'd like that very much, little sister." As Ali prepared to leave, Marcus walked him to the door. "I still have so many questions," he admitted. "That's good," Ali replied. "Questions keep faith honest. Blind faith isn't faith at all. It's just willful ignorance. Is that why you're here? To keep your faith honest?" Ali paused, surprised by the insight. "Maybe so. We all need reminders of what matters." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small card with a phone number. "This is my private line. Not many people have it. If you need to talk or if Sophia wants more chocolate cake, call me." Marcus took the card with visible emotion. "I don't know how to thank you. Live. Love your daughter. Find those moments of peace. That's thanks enough." Ali placed his hand briefly on Marcus's shoulder before stepping into the hallway. The crowd that had gathered earlier had dispersed, but a few neighbors still lingered, hoping for a glimpse of the famous boxer. Ali acknowledged them with nods and brief greetings as he made his way to the stairwell. Just before descending, he turned back to see Marcus and Sophia standing in their doorway, the father's arm around his daughter's shoulders, both watching him go. They made a poignant silhouette, wounded but standing, diminished but not defeated. Ali raised his hand in farewell, a gesture that seemed to encompass more than a simple goodbye. It carried a promise, an affirmation of the connection formed in the most unexpected of circumstances. As the black Cadillac pulled away from the curb, a light rain began to fall, washing the city streets clean. Inside the car, Ali sat in unusual silence, his own thoughts turned inward, reflecting on faith, loss, and the strange ways in which people enter each other's lives precisely when needed most. 3 weeks passed. The changing Chicago weather brought cooler temperatures and leaves beginning to turn from green to gold. Inside apartment 315, Marcus Wilson sat at his kitchen table surrounded by bills and paperwork, the administrative aftermath of death that no one prepares you for. The phone rang, startling him from his calculations. He answered with the weary tone of someone expecting another creditor or insurance agent. Wilson Residence. Is this the home of the famous sandcastle architect? Muhammad Ali's distinctive voice came through the line. Marcus straightened in his chair, a smile breaking through his fatigue. Ali, I didn't expect to hear from you again. I said I'd call, didn't I? Ali replied. I keep my promises, especially to brave little girls. In the background, Marcus could hear sounds of a gymnasium, the rhythmic thud of punching bags, the squeak of shoes on polished floors, men calling out instructions. How is Sophia? Ali asked. She's better, I think, Marcus said, glancing toward her bedroom where she was working on homework. She talks about her mother more easily now, asks questions I don't always have answers for, but at least she's asking. And you? Marcus hesitated. Some days are better than others. I found a support group at the community center, parents who've lost spouses. It helps to know I'm not alone in this. You never were, Ali said simply. There was a moment of comfortable silence before Ali continued. I'm fighting an exhibition match for charity next Saturday. Children's Hospital fundraiser. I reserved 2 tickets for you and Sophia. Front row. Marcus was taken aback. That's incredibly generous, but no buts, Ali interrupted. Consider it a prescription. Dr. Ali's orders for healing. One afternoon of witnessing greatness in the ring. Despite himself, Marcus laughed. Your humility is inspiring. Humility's overrated, Ali shot back with audible humor. Sometimes you need to see something spectacular to remember that life still holds wonders. The invitation hung in the air, tempting and slightly intimidating. Marcus hadn't taken Sophia anywhere beyond school and grocery shopping since the funeral. The thought of navigating crowds, of attempting something as normal as attending a sporting event, seemed both desirable and daunting. We'll be there, he finally said, making the decision before he could second-guess himself. Excellent, Ali replied. Tickets will be at will call under your name. And Marcus? Yes? Wear something fancy. You're coming to the reception afterward. Before Marcus could protest, Ali had hung up, leaving him staring at the receiver with a mixture of disbelief and cautious excitement. When he told Sophia about the invitation, her reaction was more animated than anything he'd seen from her in months. She immediately began planning what to wear, bombarding him with questions about boxing, and asking if she could make a sign to hold up during the match. For the first time in half a year, their apartment buzzed with anticipation rather than grief. It wasn't happiness exactly, but it was something adjacent to it, a reminder that they were still capable of looking forward to things. The morning of the match arrived crisp and clear. Marcus found himself standing before the bathroom mirror, attempting to knot a tie he hadn't worn since the funeral. His fingers fumbled with the unfamiliar pattern until frustration threatened to overtake him. Let me help, came a small voice from the doorway. Sophia stood there in a blue dress her mother had bought her, her hair carefully braided by their elderly neighbor, Mrs. Jenkins. You know how to tie a tie? Marcus asked, surprised. Sophia shook her head. No, but Mom always said 2 people figuring something out is better than 1 person getting mad at it. The simple wisdom, an echo of his wife's practical nature, hit Marcus with unexpected force. He knelt down to Sophia's level. She was right about that, about a lot of things. Together, consulting a diagram Marcus found in an old magazine, they managed to create a passable knot. It wasn't perfect, but as Sophia declared with satisfaction, it's good enough to meet Muhammad Ali. The exhibition match was held at a packed auditorium on the north side of Chicago. True to Allie's word, 2 tickets awaited them at will call, along with VIP passes for the reception. As they were escorted to their front row seats, Marcus felt the curious stares of other attendees, clearly wondering who they were to receive such privileged treatment. Sophia, clutching her homemade sign reading, "Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee," seemed oblivious to the attention, her eyes wide as she took in the ring, the lights, the gathering crowd. When Allie made his entrance, the auditorium erupted. He moved with the fluid grace that had made him legendary, acknowledging the crowd with raised hands. But when his circuit brought him near their seats, he paused specifically to wink at Sophia and give Marcus a subtle nod. The gesture wasn't lost on nearby spectators, who immediately began speculating in hushed tones about the connection between the boxing great and this unremarkable father-daughter pair. The exhibition match itself was magnificent. Though not fighting for a title, Ali performed with characteristic showmanship and skill, demonstrating why he remained one of the most captivating athletes in the world. Sophia watched transfixed, occasionally tugging at her father's sleeve to ask questions about the rules or exclaim over a particularly impressive maneuver. For Marcus, the experience was surreal. Sitting there beside his enthusiastic daughter, temporarily immersed in something that had nothing to do with loss or grief, he felt a forgotten sensation stealing over him. Normalcy. Not happiness, not yet, but its distant cousin, the simple pleasure of an ordinary moment. After Ali's inevitable victory, they were escorted to a ballroom where the reception was being held. The room buzzed with Chicago's elite, politicians, business leaders, celebrities, all dressed in formal attire and sipping champagne. Marcus immediately felt out of place, his second-hand suit and imperfect tie marking him as an outsider. He tightened his grip on Sophia's hand, fighting the urge to retreat. "Mr. Wilson," a young man in a tuxedo approached them. "Mr. Ali asked me to look out for you. He's still changing, but he wanted me to make sure you and your daughter were comfortable. Can I get you something to drink? Champagne for you, juice for the young lady?" Before Marcus could respond, a woman in an elegant green dress joined them. "Are you the Wilsons? I'm Gloria Mitchell from the Children's Hospital Board. Mohammed mentioned you might be interested in our art therapy program for children experiencing loss." Marcus blinked in confusion. "He did?" Gloria nodded. "He's become one of our biggest supporters. Said your daughter might benefit from the program, and that you might have insights to offer as a parent." As they spoke, more people approached, each seemingly briefed by Ali to connect with Marcus and Sophia in some way. A school principal with information about a scholarship program. A real estate agent who happened to know of an apartment opening up in a better neighborhood with the same rent Marcus was currently paying. A restaurant owner who offered Marcus a job with flexible hours to accommodate Sophia's school schedule, a significant step up from his current warehouse position. Gradually, Marcus realized what Ali had done. This wasn't just an invitation to a boxing match. It was an orchestrated introduction to a network of support, disguised as a social event. When Ali finally made his entrance to the reception, freshly showered and dressed in an impeccable suit, the crowd gravitated toward him like metal shavings to a magnet. But after the obligatory greetings, he made his way directly to where Marcus and Sophia stood. "You came," he said, as if there had been any doubt. "We wouldn't have missed it," Marcus replied, still processing the parade of helpful strangers Ali had sent their way. Ali crouched down to Sophia's level. "Did you enjoy the fight, little sister?" She nodded enthusiastically. "You were so fast. Like magic." "Not magic," Ali corrected with a wink. "Just lots and lots of practice." He straightened and turned to Marcus. "Walk with me a minute." They moved to a quieter corner of the ballroom, leaving Sophia happily munching canapés under Gloria's watchful eye. "You've been busy," Marcus observed, gesturing subtly to the various people who had approached them. Setting all this up, Ali shrugged. "I know people who know people. Seemed like the right connections might help." "Why?" Marcus asked simply. Ali considered him for a moment. "Remember when you came to find me? Asked me to prove my faith?" Marcus nodded, slightly embarrassed now at his boldness that day. "Faith without works is dead," Ali said. "That's not just in my book. It's in yours too. Believing in something means nothing if it doesn't change how you act in the world." He gestured around the room. "All these people with resources, connections, opportunities. What good is it if they don't share it with those in need? What good is my fame if I can't use it to open doors for others? Marcus struggled to find words. I don't know how to repay this. You don't, Allie said firmly. That's the point. You just pass it on when you can, however you can. He placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder. 3 weeks ago, you asked me to prove my faith. But maybe what you really needed to see was that faith still existed in the world at all, that there was still goodness and connection possible even after everything you lost. Marcus felt his throat tighten with emotion. I think you might be right. Usually am, Allie replied with his characteristic confidence lightening the moment. Now there's someone I want you and Sophia to meet. He led Marcus back across the room to where Sophia was now chatting animatedly with a dignified older woman in a hijab. Marcus, this is my mother, Odessa Clay, Allie introduced. She lost my father 2 years ago. Been telling her about you and Sophia. Mrs. Clay extended her hand warmly. Muhammad speaks highly of you both. I was just telling your daughter that grief is like learning to write with your other hand. Awkward and messy at first, but it gets more natural with time. Marcus took her hand, struck by the simple but profound analogy. That's exactly how it feels. My son may be the famous one, Mrs. Clay said with a knowing smile, but I taught him everything he knows about faith and resilience. That's the truth, Allie agreed with obvious affection. Strongest person I know. As the evening progressed, Marcus found himself drawn into conversations that had nothing to do with pity or awkward condolences. People spoke to him normally with genuine interest. Some shared their own experiences with loss. Others simply treated him like any other guest. Both approaches were refreshing in their authenticity. Sophia, meanwhile, had become the unofficial belle of the ball, charming everyone from city officials to celebrity guests with her unfiltered observations and questions. For the first time in months, Marcus saw his daughter as others might, not as a tragic figure defined by loss, but as a vibrant, curious child with a future still unfolding before her. Near the end of the evening, as the crowd began to thin, Allie found Marcus again. Got something for you, he said, handing over a small package wrapped in simple brown paper. Marcus unwrapped it to find a leather-bound journal, its pages blank and waiting. For recording moments of peace, Allie explained. Like I showed you in my Quran. Different tradition, same practice. Marcus ran his fingers over the smooth cover. I wouldn't know where to begin. Start with tonight, Allie suggested. Write down one good thing that happened. Tomorrow find another. They're there if you look for them. As they prepared to leave, Sophia gave Allie a fierce hug. Thank you for making my dad smile again, she whispered, though not quietly enough to prevent Marcus from overhearing. Allie pretended not to notice Marcus's reaction as he hugged the child back. That wasn't me, little sister. Your dad's smile was always there, just waiting for the right moment to return. Outside, Allie's driver waited to take them home. Before they got in the car, Marcus turned to Allie one last time. You never really answered my question that first day, he said, about what faith is for, if not to save the people we love. Allie's expression grew thoughtful. Maybe it's not about saving them from death at all. Maybe it's about saving ourselves from the kind of life that has no meaning after loss. He gazed up at the night sky, where a few stars managed to shine despite the city lights. Faith gives us a context for suffering, not an explanation. I don't think we ever get that, but a framework that says this pain isn't the whole story, that there's something bigger than this moment, this loss, this grief. Marcus followed his gaze upward. I'm not sure I believe that yet. You don't have to, Allie said simply. Just be open to the possibility. And in the meantime, live like it might be true. Love your daughter. Help others when you can. Look for those moments of peace. As the Cadillac pulled away from the curb, Sophia waved enthusiastically through the window. Marcus raised his hand in a more measured farewell, though the gesture carried the weight of everything words could not express. Allie stood watching until the car disappeared around a corner, his usual entourage respectfully keeping their distance. Did you help them? His mother asked, appearing at his side. Allie considered the question. I think they helped me more. Mrs. Clay nodded in understanding. That's how it always works, isn't it? When you reach out to heal others, you end up healing something in yourself. The great mystery, Allie agreed with a small smile. Later that night, in apartment 315, Marcus Wilson sat at his kitchen table with the leather journal open before him. Sophia was asleep, her new dress carefully hung up. Her excited chatter about the evening finally quieted. The blank page stared back at him, intimidating in its emptiness. How to begin capturing something as nebulous as a moment of peace amid the ongoing storm of grief? After several false starts, he simply wrote, "Today I remembered how to be more than just a widower. Today I was a father taking his daughter to a boxing match. Today I had conversations that weren't about death or coping or moving on. Today I glimpsed what might be possible." He closed the journal, running his hand over its cover. It wasn't faith. Not yet. But it was something adjacent to it. A willingness to consider that the story wasn't over, that new chapters might still be written. Outside his window, the Chicago night pulsed with life. Distant sirens, music from a neighboring apartment, the rumble of the elevated train. The city didn't pause for grief, didn't accommodate loss. It simply continued, offering both challenge and invitation to those within it. Keep moving. Keep living. Find your way back to the rhythm. For the first time in 6 months, Marcus Wilson felt ready to try. And in a hotel suite across town, Muhammad Ali knelt on a prayer rug facing Mecca, completing his evening prayers. When he finished, he remained kneeling longer than usual, his thoughts not on his next fight or public appearance, but on a father and daughter, finding their way through grief's dark labyrinth. The true measure of a man, he whispered to himself, repeating words his mother had taught him long ago, is not how he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but how he stands in times of challenge and controversy. He rose to his feet, his legendary body, so often described as the perfect human athletic specimen, showing the subtle signs of age and countless battles, both in and out of the ring. Yet he moved with the quiet dignity of someone who had found what Marcus Wilson was still seeking: peace not dependent on perfect circumstances, faith proven not through words or rituals, but through presence when it mattered most.